Are you ready to get real? Welcome to real estate, the world's loneliest career, where you're always out of balance, unfulfilled, the role models are fake, the numbers unattainable, and you're just supposed to be and do it all. Join self-made millionaire real estate agents, wives, moms, and business owners as we level up, learn from special guests, and elevate and disrupt an entire industry through real education our way.
Hi, everybody. I am so excited because, we're missing Angela today, so I'm sorry for Angela. She has some stuff going on personally. She'll be back next week, but we have tons of friends joining us today, and I think this is a very unique conversation, so I'm so excited to have it. But joining us today, we have Garrett Maroon, who you guys have seen on the show a couple times. He's like a homeboy. We love him. He's the best.
Homeboy, yeah.
Every time Garrett's around, he teaches me something that I have to go and noodle on for months afterwards. So he's very profound. You'll learn a lot. And then we have Jesse. Do you say Hutchison? Jesse Hutchison is Garrett's agent, and I'm going to have you guys go through and explain your roles on the team. But Jesse is succeeding at a super high level as an agent on a team. And then we have Casey Young with us, who Casey probably feels like she's in the hot seat because I feel like the backside operations people, they never do this stuff. So
that's true. She's always in the hot seat, Lindsay.
We're so excited to have you. But what I think is cool about this is I've never seen anyone talk to an entire team at one time before. So, I've seen tons of interviews with team leaders or team owners. I've actually rarely seen the agents on the team speak about what it's like to be on a team. Directors of operations, sometimes we see them out and about, but team is such a buzzword in real estate, and it has been for so many years that I feel like it's what everyone thinks they should do. It's what everyone wants to do, but it's this whole very complicated, very messy, very crazy thing to build. And yes, there are books out there, right? Millionaire Real Estate Agent and Chris Waters' $1 Million Real Estate Team. But like outside of that, there's a whole lot of like, what do I do? How do I do it? Am I doing it right? So I thought it would just be amazing to talk to a team that's functioning on a super high level about how your team works and how you created it and all of that. So why don't we start with Garrett and just tell us a little bit about like the inception of the team, when you knew it was time to start one, and your role on the team as it is today.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for having us. Thanks for having me back. It's always fun, Lindsay, to hang out. And your intro video was the coolest thing I've ever seen on a podcast. So I thought it was going to be like your little intro, dialogue, but it was an actual video. That was totally legit.
I made it up, and now I need to make it better, but I just made it up to see if it worked. And I was like, woo, it worked. So yay.
I liked it. It was great. No, so I've been in real estate since 2014 and have been referral only the entire time. And I've been really fortunate for that. So it was really so let me start here. So my second full year, I sold 50 houses by referral. And because of this industry, as we know who are listening, I just kind of felt like I was supposed to start building a team. I didn't know why. I didn't really want to, but I just did. So I had a full-time admin at the time, and I brought on my first agent in 2017 without real clarity as to why. And that only lasted like 7 months, and I had to let him go because I just didn't understand what I was doing. And so like any good business owner, I just did it again, right, without having clarity. And so I had to let that person go too a couple months later. And so it really forced me to stop and say, what do I really want? Right? What is it I'm actually trying to do here? And so it was me and my admin who'd been with me since 2016. I hired Casey in 2019 because I was trying to get more leverage. Casey came on as like a hybrid. She was my showing assistant and was the transaction coordinator for buyers. And then I felt like, okay, it was really time. I was at a position where I really wanted to step back and leverage out of selling eventually. So we brought Jesse on. in April of 2020 is when he got licensed, right when the world shut down. And I was at a place where I was really okay actually letting go of my referrals and letting someone else handle them, and realizing I really want to step out of this selling and stepping into something bigger, which for me is training and coaching other people.
Mhm.
And so we brought Jesse on in 2020, and he just started to learn. Also works 100% by referral, so that just takes some time, right? So started to do, you could realize relatively quickly that he was really good at selling. The question always with referrals is how effective will he be in his lead generation, and we didn't really know. I mean, we thought he'd be effective, but it took him that first year, I think, what, Jesse, maybe 14 transactions, something like that. Some of them for me.
Yep.
And yeah. And then last year was his first full year. He did 59 or 60 total transactions. And it allowed me in June of last year to just step out of selling altogether. So I haven't sold since June, and it's me, Jesse. We've got one more agent, Casey, and we've got a transaction coordinator from the Philippines, actually, who we just hired relatively recently. And we did 100 deals last year, all by referral. We'll probably do 120, 125 this year, something like that. But, it really just came from, quite honestly, for me, Lindsay, it was, I've got a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old. He turned 3 yesterday, and almost 1-year-old. And I just didn't want to miss them growing up. And so it just wasn't worth it to me to keep selling. I wanted to figure out a way to grow and scale and give other people opportunity, quite honestly. And we're better together. So that's really was the mindset when I decided to actually start growing the team and be intentional with it. So that's a quick background.
I love that. I'm sure people are listening are like, oh my God, they did 100 deals by referral only. We have a whole episode with just Garrett talking about how that works. And they also run a business that teaches agents to do that. So just FYI, go back in the archives of the show and listen to Garrett talk about how they run that business by referral only, because that's incredible. I think probably the number one misnomer plus thing that maybe holds people back from starting a team is this thought where it's like, well, I have to get all these leads. Like, so people are like, wait, I don't have enough leads, or like, I don't have enough money to like go out there and start spending $50,000 a month on Zillow to like feed my team with leads. And so, yeah, go listen to Garrett talk about that for sure. So
yeah,
Jesse, that is how many deals last year?
I finished the year with 59. I had a 60th on New Year's Eve that had got bumped to January. So.
That is incredible. And that's I don't know the numbers, but I know that, I've run a team of up to 30 people, and most of my friends have teams. Like, to see one agent on a team doing 60 deals a year is pretty insane. So congratulations to you. That's incredible. So tell us, and I know a little bit about how you guys met in your story, but tell us about how you got connected, and like, why would an agent doing 60 deals a year, why would you be on a team? What's the benefit to you of being there?
Yeah, sure. So, Garrett and I have known each other since college. We both went to Christopher Newport University. Our wives went there as well. So we've known each other for years. And he and I were meeting for coffee pretty regularly back when I was working as a consultant. I was in sales and marketing, had a little construction background. And G had asked me if I'd ever thought about real estate. And, of course, the answer is yeah, when I'm 20, right? Not when I'm 35 trying to grow a family. But he said, what if I could promise you some leads? And so I jumped right in with him. I mean, I would not have probably done that with anyone else. I've got a lot of trust in Garrett. He's, I knew he was being genuine when he said he would, keep me afloat and help me get transitioned over, and took that big leap of faith. It was February of 2020. I think I took the licensing test in March, and then the entire world shut down just as I got my license in April. So fantastic transition to walk away from a consulting practice and into real estate with no idea what the future had for us. But thankfully our market stayed strong, stayed moving, and did 14 deals that first half year, and then, like I said, 59 transactions last year. And so super thankful. I'm feeling very blessed at how things have worked out for us. And certainly you asked the question of why stay on a team doing this many transactions. I'm a big fisherman. If I'm not selling houses or spending time with my family, I'm fishing. I spent 4 days last week in Louisiana fishing with some buddies. And these two that you see here, Casey and Garrett, they kept everything afloat. We even wrote an offer. I had a buddy I was fishing with who wanted a potential investment property. And, Garrett was able to get the offer written for me just via text while I'm out on it. There's your answer. Like the leverage and the trust, that you have and being able to rely on other people to keep things afloat. I mean, I remember one of the first things I said to Garrett when he talked about scaling up my business. I did the 14 deals and we were like, could we go for 50? And I told him in order for 50 to work, it had to feel like 30. Otherwise, why are you on a team, right? And so that was sort of, I feel like that was what we kept, reminding ourselves last year of as Casey and Garrett were developing out the systems, how to make it more efficient, how to make it less stressful, how to make it not feel like we're just working, 24/7. And Casey's worked really hard in creating systems that have just made it so much easier for me as an agent. I wake up every day and all I have to worry about is converting and closing. Everything else is happening in the background. I'm able to pop in and just see how things are going, with our transaction coordinator, what she's sending out. But I don't have to worry about all that stuff that other agents are having to deal with. The paperwork, the ordering signs, lock boxes, getting your photos ordered, handyman. I don't have to deal with any of that. So for me, I get to focus on what I love, and that's converting and closing. And everything else the two of them handle for me. So, it's a no brainer for me. I also look at, I'll probably bring in say 30 or so of my own leads this year. And so at that point you start again saying, why would you stay on a team? You're giving up so much commission. But I wholeheartedly believe that success begets success. Right. And so am I going to get those 30 leads if I'm not getting 30 to 40 from Garrett? Right. And so I know for a fact that a lot of those folks who are calling me who see my success are seeing it because I'm grinding out his deals as well. And again, I get to just focus on what I love, converting and closing. Let them handle the listing paperwork.
I think that your mindset is amazing. I think that's like probably the biggest place that people get tripped up is like the scarcity mindset, right? Like if a team functions correctly, and we know guys like that are listening, there's a lot of, I hate to say bad, but there are a lot of teams out there that don't function in a healthy way. They don't provide their agents what they should, so but a good team is very different. And I think that there's scarcity that goes both ways, and you guys have done this incredible job of not letting that happen on either side. So Garrett doesn't have scarcity about letting Jesse like fly out into the world. A lot of team leaders keep this really tight leash on their people. They're not allowed to do this. They're not allowed to do that. The cherry picked deals go to the team leader. The team leader's face, everything is all about the team, so that's scarcity on that side. And then on the agent side, there's a lot of scarcity about like, well, what am I getting? Like, what is the value here? But I think you guys have done an awesome job of not being in scarcity and building. You're building something together, really, right? Like,
yeah. It doesn't make sense to, so two things. Number one, in my mastermind group, we talk a lot about talented agents don't talk about the split. They talk about what their earning potential is, right? Like, who cares what the split is? How much can you earn? Right? I mean, that's what really matters at the end of the day. What are you going to provide? What can I actually walk away with? Stop worrying so much about the split. Like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if they provide you enough value, right? But number two, I think you nailed it, Lindsay. For me, part of it for me is like, I just don't want to do it. So I'm happy to let Jesse take on all of those deals. But you're right. I was in a training last week. Casey was with me. And so many of those team leaders are like, yeah, I'm still selling, but I've got a bunch of agents, whatever. And I think there's two problems. Number one, they're spending way too much money, so they can't actually stop selling, right? There's not enough profit to go around if they're not doing it. So that's just poorly run business, in my opinion. And number two, there is too much ego. I mean, this whole industry is ego driven in so many ways, but like there's way too much ego. And I don't care. I'm happy that Jesse is our best agent. I'm happy that I'm our worst agent, right? Like, I'm totally happy with that because we are better together. And we're going to go a lot further if everybody else is recognized for what they're doing, not just about me. And at some point, I don't want it to be about me because I want to step away. You know, I want to be able to move on and do something else and let the team still function at a really high level for Casey, Jesse, and anybody else to have a really big opportunity. And their opportunity will be stunted if it just stays about me. And so I think one of the challenges in the team role is there is too much ego. It is about them. They need to be the number one agent. They need to be on every single sign, right? And at the end, like I just finished reading a book, Who Not How, which is phenomenal. And it talks about find the who's in your life, right? And help them to grow, help them to succeed in the ways they want to succeed. And if you're running a team and everything's about you and it starts and ends with you, your team members at some point are just going to get burnt out of that. Right. And that's just not a good way for somebody to have a life. So I'm just not a believer in that. And I think, you know, it took me tries to find the right person. Jesse's the right agent that works for. And there's going to be other agents that works for too. Not everybody, but the person that understands, you know, that kind of value is going to want to stay. And it's a good relationship, and it allows us to grow and do a lot of deals together and not be in competition. Like I never understood why that made sense. Why would I compete with my own agents? Like that doesn't make any sense.
Well, because I think you hit the nail on the head. Like a lot of, you know, that's like the progression of the ego in the industry, right? Like you get in, you sell a couple of houses, you know, then maybe you move to selling bigger priced homes, or then maybe you move to listings, maybe you move to luxury. That always used to be kind of like the path of the agent. Now it's like, as soon as you get your feet underneath you enough, you grow a team. But 99.9% of the time, it's not, I'm growing a team because I have too much business and I need leverage, or because I want to give other people it's literally because it's an ego thing. It's like, well, you know, everybody in town has a team, so I need a team too, so that I look really super awesome, so that it's the Lindsay Man team, right? You know, so, but yeah, you know, that's not usually the way that it goes. And then Casey, so I just want to hear a little bit about your story. So I think that the good director of operations is like the unicorn. So that is the role, that and like the executive assistant to the team leader, usually those are the unicorns. So those are the ones that are impossible to find. It's impossible to know if you have the right person. Like your job is very, very, very important. So tell us about how you know, your journey into this team started, and kind of what your role looks like a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So Garrett kind of mentioned I was given this position as kind of a hybrid showing assistant, transaction coordinator assistant. I got my license and really started learning real estate just because I was showing houses. I had to know how to talk about it. I was writing contracts for the agents. Well, at the time it was just Garrett, doing all the paperwork. So I was really learning for those first 6 months. And when our other admin, the main transaction coordinator, moved on, she ended up starting a team with her husband. It kind of forced me to dive full into the job and realize, okay, we don't have any systems. How do I get this done when Jesse and Garrett are running at full speed? And with the shutdown, I mean, everybody knows the market just blew up, and we all of a sudden had 16 contracts all at once and not a single system to accommodate the work. And I was quickly realizing, and Garrett too, that I was not the best transaction coordinator. That wasn't my skill set. I could do it and get it done, but I was missing things because we didn't have a system and it wasn't the best use of my skills. So we started kind of discussing, really Garrett discussing how we probably needed to transition my role because we needed those systems. We had some good influence, I think, with our friend Mark Dutton, who is really a genius when it comes to operating systems. And so we transitioned in January 2020 or 2021, I guess, was when I fully took on that director of operations role and started looking into what do we need to build, what needs to be caught by a system so that it's not just human error. You know, there's always going to be human error because we operate the systems, but if we can eliminate a lot of the back end for a human just checking off boxes, So I did a ton of research. That's kind of my skill set, I would say, is I'm a researcher. So I looked into everything, and we found out pretty quickly that the type of business we do is pretty unique, just referral based. A lot of the systems out there accommodate lead gen, a lot of high lead gen, and we didn't need that. So my job was really kind of researching and talking to a lot of people and trying to figure out what fit us best. And I was able to use my skills with, I would say I'm creative in the sense of trying to figure something out, which was fun for me. I could kind of just do it on my own and not have to talk to a million people about once. I need kind of the space to think about things and compile some evidence and options and bring it to the team. And that's what we did. We found something that fit us. I got to build it out and make it very custom to our business and our team. And then the next step was finding someone to take that transaction coordinator role. So that's part of my job as well, is working with the hiring process, trying to do that well and be patient with it. So that's the piece that I think I'm being built up in, is helping with the hiring and the training on the back end as well. So I would say my goal mainly is providing the tools and equipment for the agents and anyone on our team to get things done without having to worry that something's falling through the cracks.
Oh, I have so many questions for all of you. This is so exciting. And people that are watching, if you have questions, we love when you throw them up in the chat. So if you have questions, let us know. Okay, so Garrett, this is ridiculous synopsis of how this happened. But so essentially, guys, so Garrett starts as a real estate agent, and then he has an overwhelming amount of business and decides that he needs leverage. So what was your very first hire?
Yeah, so I started in 2014 on a team in June 2014. 2016 in March, went on my own, immediately hired an assistant. Just knew that like I just am not going to succeed unless I have someone to help me, right? So plus it lit a fire under me. I'd never had payroll before, and I was like, oh no, I better make this work, right? So I brought on an assistant right away. And that's what happened. So like we just started growing, and it became a lot of consistency. So for me too, let's at least had enough understanding of myself. And, I didn't really have a lot, but so I did 50 transactions my second year. And then I realized I had a coach, and my coach said, okay, how many do you want to do next year? And my answer was 50. I just want to do it in less time. So I've always kind of been in the mindset of how little time do I have to spend to make this work? Right. And so like, how can I be better? How can I be more efficient? How can I do these pieces? And I think it took me a couple years to realize, okay, now I really need to understand leverage and getting the right people in place. And quite honestly, my first assistant, though I am so grateful for the years she had, she was not the right fit, right? She just wasn't. And she was with me for like 4.5 years because I didn't know how to let someone go. I'm just being transparent, right? Like that was really
I tell people all the time, people get like so up in their head about like their first hire. And I'm like, and this is really bad, but it's also kind of true. I'm like, you pretty much just have to be willing to burn, because honestly, most of the time with your first hire, it's not them, it's you. Also,
totally.
So, unless you really just end up with the wrong person, which is also you because you didn't know how to hire them. So
right. I went to Craigslist, right, which was a terrible idea. I got one applicant who actually had real estate experience. I met her one time and I was like, oh, so I mean, like, do you want to hire or do you want to work for me? She's like, how much? And I was like, oh, I don't know. What makes sense? Right. And like, I had no idea. She comes in first day. Hey, like, what's our training like? Oh, I don't know. But like the assistant down the hall can tell you what to do. And it's like, seriously, that was my training regiment, which it's not that much better. Let's be honest now.
Yes.
But, I just did it. I just wanted help. And again, my personality has always been about succeeding through others. Like I just find a lot of joy in watching them crush it. And I care very deeply, like for Jesse and Casey, about their families too. And I love the opportunity to make a huge impact on them and their families. And again, I think like, yeah, we all have ego, and I still struggle with pride too. But I think like the desire to say, I want others to succeed and can I recreate what I've done and help them succeed at a really high level? And that's been challenging, but it's been fun. And even finding resources. So again, like just admitting, it's hard for me sometimes to admit that I don't know a lot of things, because I don't. So like with Casey was being nice, but I said, all right, Casey, we need systems. And she and I would meet once a week and she'd be like, okay, what do we need? And I was trying to do it and just realized like, I'm terrible at this. This is why the systems aren't being built, because I don't have a clue what I'm doing. So we just went out and hired a coach for Casey and said, this coach will help you build these systems. And I just basically stepped out of it. Right. And so like, I just think the ego drives you to want to make all the decisions and do all the stuff, and it's all about you and blah blah blah. Well, the reality is I'm good at generating referrals. That's really my best gift. If I try to do everything else, even if I'm good at it, but Casey's great at it, I'm standing in the way of us being better. And so, even finding those resources to help the people that I think are talented, Jesse and Casey, to succeed. I mean, that's hugely important, I think, to building a team effectively.
Oh, huge. Okay, so this one's funny, and I'm going to ask Jesse, which is a unique perspective. So systems is like, I don't know, the word, right? Like we need systems, an agent needs systems, and a team needs it. It's like, I can't tell you how many times I hear the word systems, but like, I think even though no one will have the guts to say it out loud, everybody is like, what the hell are the systems though? Right? Like, so Jesse, even though you're the agent, so Garrett comes in, hires Jesse. Now Jesse hits the ground running and Jesse's going crazy. How does Jesse know that he needs support and systems? What are the systems as the agent that you need to have in place in order for you to go out there and absolutely crush what you said, which is converting and closing buyers and sellers?
Oh gosh, I mean Lindsay, that's a loaded question, because that's really more of Casey. I mean, I wake up every day and my world is a spreadsheet. I have my active transact, I have my upcoming buyers and sellers, and I have my active buyers that are on the MLS. I do a daily touch for each, and I just check the status of where it's at. Everything else, Casey's handling. Casey and our transaction coordinator are handling. I mean, Casey's doing a daily touch to every one of my active clients. I can read the text thread. They really have worked so well at creating systems that what I don't know, right? Like I don't know how much they're doing, because it's so much.
I ask you that question, right? Because I want to know where you feel like the wheels fall off or things fall through the cracks. And it sounds like you guys have done an amazing job and that's not happening. But like the person who feels the pain of not having the systems is the agent, right? Like Garrett will feel it on the leadership side when the wheels fall off the team in general. But it's whether you're a single agent or you are creating a team, if you're out of control, if you can't get your stuff done, if stuff is absolutely crazy, it's the Jesse that's feeling the pain of not having the systems, right? So it's cool to hear from an agent who, whether you've made them yourself or the team supported you in making them, like you are highly systematized and leveraged to the point where you're not feeling that pain point.
And trust, when I am feeling pain, they certainly know it, and they'll tell you that.
We feel pain also when he feels pain.
No, but I have 11 transactions under contract right now today. I mean, and I woke up this morning and just checked the status of each. We use Slack. If those of you are not familiar, Google Slack. It's a great way to communicate with your team. Our transaction coordinator and Casey, you put an update of where the status of each job is. It allows us to be able to check in on our clients if need be, if there's an emergency. But otherwise, it's just a quick check of the status of where things are at. And I can continue to go about my day, continue to do my lead gen, continue to show buyers houses and try to get things under contract. And so, we have an upcoming listing next week. Casey, I sent Casey the notes on it this morning. It was just a simple text thread. It's, name, email, phone, how much we're going to list it for, any notes we need, and she takes off getting things going. And so, obviously there's more to it than that, right? But I mean, it is, they've done such a good job of streamlining what we're trying to do here that I can be really hand agent. And of course it takes a significant amount of trust, but we've worked together, Casey and I, so long now that, I think we've developed that trust and we've got it down. I mean, it's amazing once you get to this point as an agent. I mean, again, going back to why does an agent stay on a team? And of course, ego is there. And you, as an agent on a team doing high volume, it is hard at times, right? Because Garrett is the team leader. So of course, Garrett's the one who gets the glamour and fame. But I trade that ego for leverage. Like I laugh, like we just, they just awarded Garrett as one of the better agents in our brokerage last month. Of course, he didn't sell a single house, right? But I can laugh at that because I'm fishing several days a week, and that's what I've traded for. I don't need the ego. I'd rather be on my boat enjoying some time off. And so, once you realize how much leverage you're trading for ego, it is so worth it.
Yeah.
Garrett,
and
what did it? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Casey.
I was just going to say the process of real estate, each transaction is going to be different, but it does follow kind of a pattern. And I think one thing that our system in place has allowed us to do is I know and the TC knows that system by heart. And so they're checking up with everyone that needs to be checked in with constantly throughout a transaction so that Jesse doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to jump in his email and ask the lender where this is or has the client checked in with this or whatever. That's something that our system does. It allows us to know exactly when something's needed and before it's needed, so it doesn't fall through the cracks. So Jesse doesn't even have to think about, oh gosh, was the appraisal ordered? Because that's already handled because we knew when that needed to get done. That's a big part of the system is hitting the milestones well before we even need to be there, so they're not feeling the aches and pains of a deadline because it's already met and it's already prepared for.
Yeah, you're his safety net, right? Like So Jesse says, like, you can feel Jesse's energy when he talks about how he's doing 60 deals a year and he's fishing and he's enjoying his family, and not saying Jesse doesn't have really bad days, right? Or really bad deals, because that happens, but you can feel his energy in that he feels safe and secure, positive about it. Garrett, what did it feel like doing 60 deals a year by yourself with none of Casey's systems? Like, did your energy feel like Jesse's, or was it like crazy and out of control?
Yeah, so Jesse will remind me often that I never did 60 deals like he did. I only ever did 50.
Oh, okay.
But but I remind him that I generated all 50 of those myself. So, we get a little bit of a battle there. No, I mean, that's a great question. Quite honestly, my thought process, I don't know if it's true, but from my experience, I'm way more hands-off as an agent than most agents that I know. And Jesse said it. I mean, there's got to be a level of trust that you just trust the person's going to take care of it. It is not a good use of my time as an agent to not spend it in the highest and best use of time, which is either, like Jesse said, going to find more business and getting it closed, or going and resting and doing something else, right? So I've always been totally okay with hands off. And I say for our team, like, agents share solutions, admin share information. Right. So the admin are the ones, and I want our team to always be proactively reaching out so that no one ever comes to us and says, like, hey, what's going on with this or what's going on with that? So every single day they're sending a text message, even if it's like, hey, just letting you know, nothing new today. Right. They know that our team is taking care of it. And so for me, it never, and I just don't, I mean, I can get stressed out, but I just trust that things are going to be okay. Most everything works out anyways, right? And most everything that everybody thinks is urgent just isn't. And so I never was a person that would freak out, even when we had a lot of transactions going on. Now, I will caveat with this. I also didn't do 50 transactions in the craziness of today's market where I was showing and writing 10 offers for every buyer, right? So that there is a difference there, no doubt. And I think I would have been way more stressed out of that. I would have just hired a showing assistant because I just don't want to do it. But I didn't feel it. I didn't feel it that much. And quite honestly too, Lindsay, and this, being a highly referral yourself, where your lead comes from makes a huge difference in your experience as a business owner and as an agent and as an admin. And so the fact that we're 100% by referral, the fact that, I've had many voicemails in my career that, hey, Garrett, it's 6 o'clock. I know it's date night. Don't worry about calling me. Just give me a shout tomorrow. Just had something on my mind, right? If your people don't respect your time and you can't respect your time, then you're going to be a lot more chaotic. So I do think that there's a huge value in that as well. So I honestly never really felt the crazy, I'm sure I did, and I just don't remember, right? But consistently never felt like this is terrible, it's going to kill me. It was more like, I just don't want to sell anymore, and I got to figure out someone else who does.
Well, I think I can say that I have felt this is terrible and it's going to kill me. And I think a lot of agents feel that. So so yes, I think the systems, it really is that big of a deal. And it's such a weird, like we're in such a weird business because we're all very entrepreneurial. We're all a little obstinate. We are like, no, outside of maybe Casey or, like a Casey type role, type personality. None of us are psycho calendar people, like we're not the best at structure as real estate agents or entrepreneurs. Right. And so, there's a tremendous difference between running a business where like, no matter how many deals you're doing, the wheels are just falling off and you're going psychotic, and then running a business in which you do have leverage and structure. It's life-changing. And I don't understand why like so many people are afraid to go out and get that for themselves. But like, so Casey, systems wise, okay, so we've been through, Garrett starts the team, Jesse comes on, Jesse's going crazy, he's selling all the houses, and then Casey comes on board. How did you analyze where the holes in the boat were and what system needed to start? Like what advice would you give someone who's starting a team on how to identify and start the systems going in even the right direction? Because like I said, I feel like that word systems, everyone is like, systems, but it's like, what are the systems? Like, can someone tell us what the systems are, please?
Yeah, I think I was at an advantage being the transaction coordinator. And if that's not the direction that someone's in, if they're not going to be the transaction coordinator first, I would say follow an agent for a day, follow them for a week, or just watch a transaction happen and take detailed notes. Like, what are the agents doing that they shouldn't be doing because the system should do it? Like, are they checking in with a lender 3 times a day because they can't remember that they already checked in with them yesterday? What is being done by an agent that's not good use of their time, and what could easily be done by someone who's on the admin side? So I would say follow an agent or have an agent write down everything they do that day. Most agents aren't going to be able to do that for you. So it's better if you can just be with them or track their emails or whatever. So I would say compile data on a transaction or for a day and start seeing how you can better organize it. And if you're going to be an admin, your brain's already kind of working like that. You're seeing that doesn't make sense. I don't know why they're doing that. Let's try something else. And you have to be ready to fail. I mean, it's trial and error. The best advice I got was be ready to fix it as your agents are telling you something's broken, because as a systems minded person, I want to build something that I like, but that makes no sense if the agents don't like it. They're not going to live in it, and they're not going to be communicative about what you need if they don't like the way you're doing it. It has to work for your team. And so be ready to take the criticism and make it work. You're the fixer in the whole situation, and be ready to take something and fix it. That's my biggest advice, is know the process before you start trying to build something, and be ready to fix it along the way and make changes to fit the team.
Yeah, you do a lot of putting out fires while they're burning.
Yeah.
Which that's mostly Jesse. Jesse's on fire. We have to put him out.
Yeah. There's no real estate. There's never any like, oh, watch out, this could set on fire, don't pour gasoline on it. It's all like, hi, we're on fire, please help put us out.
That's so true.
Okay, so then I want to talk about the handoff with all of you guys, because I feel like this is the place where other people get really stuck. So let's start downhill. So Garrett, because you run such a referral-based business, agents get really up in their head about, I could never give my clients to someone else. If Sally calls me on Tuesday, and Sally is my mom's best friend's sister's cousin, and she wants to see a house, Sally's going to want me. There's no way she's going to work with Jesse. You know, like I will never be able to step. Sometimes the referral based business almost feels like the golden handcuffs, because it almost feels like I can't, it provides for me, it feeds me, but I can't step out of it because it's me. It's all me. And that's why I'm being referred. So how did you, I'm sure it was messy in the beginning, but how do you deal with people who you have strong personal relationships with coming to you for help with real estate and saying, I'm not going to help you, Jesse is? What's that handoff process like?
Yeah, and the hardest obstacle is your own mindset about it, because you are concerned that they'll never like anybody else as much as me. You know, that's just not true. They're committed to the standard of service that I represent, not necessarily me. And so, and it took, you know, it's still hard sometimes to pass people off, because like, I want to work with you. Well, that's awesome, and I appreciate that. That's not what I do anymore day to day. Right. I have a listing specialist who handles the day to day, because I'm spending time doing stuff like this, right? Having conversations with people, working with my team to make sure the process is really strong, talking to my other agents to make sure their people are taken care of, right? So you just wouldn't get as great of an experience with me as you would with Jesse, who's going to be hands-on with you day in and day out, right? So number one, there's always a way to pitch it as a positive for them, right? I think that's 100% true. But quite honestly, the handoff to me is for people that are easy, here's the process. Hey, thanks so much for reaching out. I really appreciate it. We'd love to help you. Hey, let me bring in, if it's a seller, let me bring in our listing specialist, Jesse, who's phenomenally talented and knows a lot of this stuff. He's going to be helping you just as much as I am. He handles day to day. And of course, anything big that's negotiating, whatever he and I are talking about, great. And then I basically just let Jesse talk to him and I step out, right? And number one, you got to have a great agent, right? So thankfully Jesse is. If the agent's terrible, then you're always going to have to get your job back. But and then number two, excuse me, if the person is really difficult, then I call and they're like, I just really want you, right? So I just handed Jesse a $500,000 seller that will be coming on the market soon, which for us, by the way, Lindsay, is a really good price point. Not for you, but for us, it's pretty good. So and they had reached out to me, you know, we went back and forth some. I said, great, let me bring Jesse in. And honestly, I said, hey, tell us when you're available. Whichever one of us can get out there first, we'll take care of you. Right. And it's never going to be me. So it's always going to be Jesse. And so Jesse's the one that goes out there. And guess what? They like Jesse and they don't care that it's not me anymore. And so I don't have to worry about it. I mean, I'll stay in touch with them. Don't get me wrong. But like they are committed to the standard of service you represent. As long as the person you send out there is going to give them that, they'll forget about you. And that's a good thing. And so for me, and that was a friend that taught me that. Say like, yeah, whoever can get there to that appointment will get there, and make sure it's never you.
Yeah.
And it's been okay. Like that's totally okay. And I also say, last thing I'll say with the referral, because it is challenging, but I always use the example of when I go to the doctor. I love my doctor, Dr. McCormick. I see the front desk and I see the nurse way more than I see Dr. McCormick. I see him for like 5 minutes, right? Comes in and tells me I need to do more cardio. That's basically my experience with my doctor. But what do I think about? Oh, I love Dr. McCormick. Right? He's still the person. That's how we're wired, to think of the person that we went to see, even when his people did everything. There's no, that's how humans are wired. Yeah, they're going to think highly of my whole team. That's good. But they're still going to say, yeah, but it's Garrett's team. Like I really enjoyed working with Garrett and his team. Right. So again, you have to get into the experience of it. You've got to work that muscle a couple times, but then it just becomes relatively second nature in my experience. Hard to overcome at the beginning.
This is really, you know, we have a lot of listeners that listen to our show. They're brand new in their career, like just got their real estate license. And so sometimes I feel like when I say things, I understand, you know, that in the beginning of your careers, unless you're really willing to be like Garrett, which I wish that I had been in the beginning of my career, and you're really willing to hold a hard no and a boundary, and you're really financially able to do do it. I understand that it's not always practical, but you have to get to the point quickly in your business in which you are able to hold boundaries, or you will get run over by your business for the rest of your life. So like, you know, this just happened to me the other day, where a very close personal friend referred someone to me, and she's the buyer is very, very, very intense. And so I did my buyer consultation in which I introduced my buyer's agent, and we did everything that we normally did. And my buyer's agent went out and showed her a house. And, the client was like, well, I guess Lindsay just doesn't, have enough time for me. Right. And she was like, are you going to be any good? So then the next question goes from, okay, so Garrett makes the handoff. Jesse, how do you handle people that are like, but where's Garrett?
Yeah, no doubt. I think, and we probably struggled with that in the first couple of deals, a year and a half, 2 years ago. But I think we've gotten to a point where it's such a seamless handoff that he brings me in to the text thread immediately so that I'm part of the conversation, right? And so that I'm already beginning to get to know them. And he and I are so similar. It's funny, we're similar but opposite. He's a little soft. I'm a little more brash, but otherwise, we carry the same standard of excellence. We worked for the same former U.S. senator who kept us on our toes. I mean, we carry a strong standard of excellence of what we're trying to do. And, I think our values are the same. And so I think that resonates with his referrals, his clients when he brings over. And so by the end of the conversation, they feel comfortable with me. It's not ever a sense that, they're unsure or uncomfortable. I also have a stronger background in the construction side. So for a buyer, it usually only takes 1 or 2 showings before I can prove that my knowledge of, what we're there to look for. So I don't know that we've faced that. If I ever get a sense during a transactional process where one of his clients may be struggling a little bit, I'll text Garrett, let him know where they're at, what's going on. And he does a great job of stepping back in to have the conversations with them, keeping them motivated, answering any concerns they might have, and then we're going again, because it can be a tough market, but especially on a buyer's side, you lose 5 times in a row, that can be a pretty devastating feeling. And so we do a good job. He does a great job of handing them off, but then staying engaged just enough. We can't be so much. Otherwise, I'm really just burning, I'm taking his commission for his job, but enough so that they certainly get the sense that he's still very much a part of the transaction. And he is. I mean, we do a daily call every morning and we talk through our transaction. So he's very aware of what's going on with every one of his clients.
And I would say too.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Let me say, so 2 quick things. So number one, to anybody that's thinking about starting a team, if you're uncomfortable or afraid to pass off a buyer or seller to your agent, you have the wrong agent. I mean, let's just be honest, right? Like if you can't trust them that they're going to do just as good a job and your client's going to be unhappy, you've got the wrong person. I think they just don't match you. Maybe you didn't get the right cultural fit, whatever it is, like just go find somebody better. That would be my first advice. But the second piece is to what Jesse said. Yeah, I'm not totally absent, right? So we set up Casey's system again, where I think, I don't even know, 4 or 5 times maybe case where I get a notification and I send a video text message to that client for everybody, even if they're not my referral, but along the way, like, hey, congratulations, your house is listed. Or, hey, I heard that you guys went under contract. That's amazing. So excited. If you need anything, I always say, like, I know Jesse and Casey are taking great care of you, but if you need anything, feel free to reach out to me as well. And they never do. And that's good. I don't want them to. That's why it's a video message, not a text message. So, but like, I still show up, right? Yeah. So they still feel like I'm paying attention and I know what's going on, but until they have a problem, they don't care that I'm not there. Right. And they do such a good job, Jesse and Casey and everybody else, like they don't have problems. So it doesn't matter that I wasn't there. So again, I think you got to understand, like, if you have the right team, you can pass people off and not be worried.
And the reason I'm asking these questions, like to the point of like beating the dead horse, is that I know that these are the obstacles that agents get stuck in their head. They're like, well, I can't do this. So now Jesse has the client, but then there's another handoff, because then the handoff happens to Casey and their operations team, right? So, I've physically heard, I can't tell you how many agents go like, why would anyone even hire us? Because, by the time they get passed down the whole assembly line, like there's zero presence from me. So Jesse, then how do you hand it off to your operational side so that then you get that off of your plate, but the client's still happy?
Yeah. When I meet with them, the initial conversation, let's use a buyer as an example. When I meet with a buyer and I walk them through the timeline of buying a house, who our team is, what we're here to do to help them serve them. But I end with my transaction coordinator. I end with Casey and our transaction coordinator. Listen, they are the most important part of our entire team. They are far more important than myself, far more important than Garrett. Once you are under contract, they are going to step in and they are going to make sure you and I get to the finish line. I'm going to say, because, I'm too busy. I'm so busy doing this and negotiating for you, I don't want anything to get lost in the weeds, right? And so Casey and the transaction coordinator are there to make sure every hurdle, every piece of paper, every document gets us to the finish line. And I say, so please make sure any text, call, or email you get from them, you answer right away. And so if you emphasize it enough in that initial conversation, by the time you bring them in, they're excited about, here, nice to finally meet Casey, and so it gets to a place where for many of them, they enjoy communicating with her more than us because, Casey's bringing them the great news of, hey, the appraisal's back, it's at value, or, hey, the home inspection's done, you should have your report. She's bringing the exciting stuff, and we're monitoring everything, and we're there to step in when a negotiation needs to happen or to answer any of the serious concerns. But for the most part, once they're under contract, Casey and transaction coordinator take over.
I know this has been such a good conversation. I want to, we're running out of time, but I want to let's roll through a transaction and what everyone's responsible for. So first of all, let's start with Garrett. How much, what is your engagement level with your team on a daily basis? Or a weekly basis? Do you do monthly meetings, daily meetings? Like, tell us where you are as a team leader with your team responsibilities.
Yeah. So I take a nap at 2 no, I'm kidding. I sometimes do. But no, so yeah, it's kind of amazing. So Monday mornings, we have a team meeting, all of us, from 9 to 10:30. We do a daily call every other day at 10 a.m. It's just transactions, what's going on with transactions. Casey leads that. And we're just walking through where everybody is and if I need to help in any way. And then other than that, like Casey and I do a one-on-one every week. I do a one-on-one with my agents every other week. And then I'm just here and available, right? I mean, I still do my own lead generation. But that doesn't take very much time in our system, thankfully. So I field calls from referrals and blah, blah, blah. But other than that, honestly, like I'm working on bigger picture stuff with Casey, or I'm working on my other businesses. And it's because I trust them to get it done. So I really am not super involved. I know what's going on. Now, when the problems happen, like I'm obviously involved in those, or, Jesse's really good at getting things closed, but if they need someone nice to come in, I'll call and I'll smooth it out because that's my skill set and maybe not his. Yeah. But, so we work really well there and he'll bring me in too, if there's ever questions or whatever, like he does a good job with that. But yeah,
is your team really not doing that much. Okay, again, and there's a reason for all of these questions. The reason for the Garrett question is agents get overwhelmed by I have to sit there all day long and I have to spend every minute of my time with all of my agents and how am I going to have agents and how am I going to take care of them, right? It's overwhelming for them. So is your team, are you guys mostly virtual? Are you brick and mortar? Do you have an office that you're required to be in? You require agents to be there?
No, I got rid of our office, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months ago. I can't remember. And so we just meet in a coffee shop and then we're virtual other than that. So real quick to answer that for the sake of time, I went into this year thinking simplicity is my word with his team, right? Mm-hmm. Too many times it's like, I got to have 10 agents and blah, blah, blah. And then I can walk away. And I was like, I don't want to do that. My sweet spot is 135 transactions, let everybody on my team make a ton of money and we'll have a good time. And let Jessie go fish and let Casey take care of her baby and work whenever she can. It's not that simple, but for the most part, it's less. I trust them. They're going to get the job done when they can get the job done. And let's make it as good of an experience as possible. Now, Jesse can go fish because he doesn't have to be on the phone 3 hours a day, right? Like most teams. So there is huge value in that too. But I think understand what's important to people on your team. And for Jesse, Tuesdays and Fridays, for him, he tries to go out and fish and then randomly he ends up there other days that we don't know about, which is great, But it is understanding what is it that the people on your team want to do and understand that it doesn't. I am not a believer and you need to have some massive team and you need to have tons of agents because now, no offense to McDonald's, I'll say this, but you could be McDonald's, which is you can take anybody, doesn't matter, but they work in your system, right? Or you can be whatever, I don't know, whatever other business that's good systems, but really good people.
A steakhouse with
right, exactly.
Good service, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And then you have the creme de la creme of the talent, right? That's there. And you can trust that talent to do what they need to do because they're motivated, not because I'm there motivating them, because they're self-motivated. And again, it just everything comes down to people. And my team, if you had called me 2 years ago, you wouldn't have, because I wasn't doing anything that was good. But 2 years ago, like, I would have been in shambles. I found Casey, I found Jesse, and that's made a huge difference. So everything comes down to people. If your team's not where you want it to be, it's probably your fault if you're trying to run a team. And most of the time, I'm just getting in the way. And so if you step back, let your people do what they need to do, step in and do some course correction, I mean, you're going to be fine. And I think just have a high level of trust with them. I think that's really huge.
I love that. Okay, so Jesse, lead comes in and tell us what you're responsible for through the transaction. So you show them houses?
Yeah, I'm still showing. I get joy out of this. I mean, I wake up and the converting and closing is what gets me motivated, right? So I take the handoff and run the transaction from a negotiating standpoint. Getting the buyers, or either getting the sellers on the market and getting them under contract, or getting the buyers into a house. It's once under contract. I do everything prior to going under contract. Once under contract, that Casey and the TC really step in. It's at that moment that they sort of take over, they get the handoff.
Let's break them up into two just super quick. So for a buyer, you show the buyer houses, you're negotiating the buyers, a contract, you write your own offers.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yep. Okay. And then I'm assuming, there's different verbiage all around the country, but like, I'm assuming you're involved in the inspection process, negotiating that. And then on some level in the appraisal process.
Yeah, I'm involved. Again, anything that's negotiated, I'm involved in. But from a scheduling perspective or from a workflow perspective, that's what Casey and the TC are handling. So, for instance, I ratified one last night. I handed off to Casey yesterday afternoon. She's already got my home inspection scheduled for next Monday afternoon. I don't even know who my inspector is. Casey takes care of that, right? So I wouldn't know how to call him if I needed to. Bit of a joke. But, so like, that's what allows me to be able to do a lot of transactions while not working nearly as much as folks who are doing a third the transactions than I am. I mean, again, I'm going fishing this Friday. I'll take the whole day off, and I've had 3 closings this week and hoping ratifying a few more, right? And so for us to be in that place to hand off the buyers, and then Casey to handle, scheduling the termite moisture inspection, scheduling the home inspection, making sure the appraisal is moving along, checking with the lender regularly, checking with our closing attorney regularly. Her team, the admin side, is taking care of all of that for us, and we just get the daily updates to make sure there's no fires to put out.
And as a seller, I'm imagining you convert the seller, and then it probably goes to Casey's team, right, to put it in the MLS, do all the flyers, do all the things. Right.
Yep. They step in as soon as, I do the consult, and because we're business by referral, I would say 9.9 out of 10, we get the business, which is a great way to do it. I can go, in casual clothes. We don't have to feel stuffy about what we're doing. Once we end the consult, I manage the relationship because of my construction background. I also help if they're going to do any pre-prep work, right? I've got a listing coming next Friday that I brought a painter in for them, the handyman doing some stuff. We've got some new stovetops getting put in, all that stuff. I handle that conversation. Once it's ready, once we're about a week out for listing, that's when I hand it off. I introduce Casey and I say, Casey's going to be a vital part of this transaction. Just a reminder, she's going to be stepping in. Let me introduce you. And then Casey steps in and takes over, ordering the photography, getting the listing paperwork ready, getting the sign ordered, getting the lockbox on, all of that stuff her team is handling.
And then you jump back in to help them negotiate inspection, appraisal, all that jazz. Yep.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay. Absolutely.
So what happens when a client, who does the client call during the flow? Like what happens when a client calls at 8:00 at night or on a Sunday morning?
Yeah.
Right?
We stay in a group text chat. And so for the most part, our clients know to text, right? And so that way, like last week, I was gone for 4 days. I could check in once or twice a day. I could see the conversation happening with Casey. Obviously, we're in our Slack channel where Casey's having conversations with the rest of the team. So I can stay abreast of what's going on without having to be a part of the conversation. But, and that's where Garrett and I differ a little bit. I like to still be very involved on this stuff, right? I still have the energy for this. And so I take the calls that are of most concern. I take the night and weekend calls. And that's just, I think that's a lot of personality driven though on myself, that I want it to be more of that and be more involved there.
Yeah. Do you use a group? Is it just a text thread? Do you use a special tool for that?
No, it's just a simple text thread on our iPhones. And then, like I said, for our team, we use a Slack channel.
I think that's my big, like I said, every time Garrett comes on, I take away something. That's my big thing. Like, I think starting today, everyone's I'm going to be like, hello, here's a group text with my entire team from the very beginning so that everybody is involved and their handoff isn't so weird because everybody's messing.
I think that's key. That's key. I think I struggled with that when he brought me on. I'm like, why would your clients want to work with me? And then of course, why do they want to work now with Casey? I'm handing them off. It's about creating expectation from the beginning. And Garrett made that clear, right? It's set the expectation during the consult. I don't work Friday nights. That's my night with my wife and my baby girl. Nobody on this call works on Sunday. We just don't work on Sundays unless it's, drastic fire that has to be put out. Right. But yeah, otherwise, no. I mean, and you set that expectation and they respect it. It'll be Friday and my clients will say, oh, I'd really like to see this house. I know you're not working this evening. Can we go tomorrow? Absolutely, man. We'll get it done.
One last question. Casey, how do you, and then Garrett, sorry. Casey, how do you deal with what happens when there is something that's on your plate? It's a normal part of your process. It isn't a 911 fire, but someone is like, hey, where is Garrett or where is Jesse? Like, how do you, I think that's the number one place that a team leader and agent gets pissed off at their operations is when the ball goes to operations, but then it keeps bouncing back. Yeah. Right. So like, how do you keep the ball on operations so that it's not constantly every 5 minutes, like, Jesse, they won, how do you manage that?
It's the trust and confidence. I think first and foremost, setting expectations and being confident that you're providing value from the start. Like I know that I have value in providing information and getting them to the finish line. I know the process. I know what I'm doing. I trust my systems. So I'm going to continue to provide that value to them throughout the transaction. If they're upset and something's going wrong or it's a big piece of information, they trust me. I know they trust me. And I have no problem saying, yeah, Jesse and I spoke about this. You're good to go. Like Jesse agrees with me, or Jesse passed along the information that we're going to go in this direction. If you're still feeling uncomfortable, I'd love to talk to you on the phone about this. And if it's still not going well, then of course, Jesse or Garrett would get involved. But when they hear like, yeah, Jesse agrees, we're gonna go about it this way, and the agent's aware or whatever, they're usually pretty comfortable with that. They know that I have a direct line to Jesse where they don't, and it's not presented that way. But once Jesse's name is mentioned with, yeah, Jesse says this is what we need to do, they're willing to go that route before needing to talk to him. And usually that's what's
supposed to function as each other's gatekeepers.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It goes back to what Garrett said about it's about the people you hire. I mean, I trust Casey wholeheartedly. I call her regularly. I had a really complicated contractor right yesterday with some terminology I needed. I go to her, right? Like she's smarter than I am on this stuff. And so of course I put my trust in her to talk to our clients because she's going to do a better job of communicating some of this stuff than I am. And so I think it's just about who's on your team and putting trust in those individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you guys are go.
Let me say one more thing. Sorry, Lindsay. Everything goes back to the doctor's office, in my opinion. When it comes to expectations, the doctor's office is open 8 to 5, right? Treat yourself that way. When nobody calls the doctor and says, I need to come see you, I'm coming tonight at 8 p.m. They're like, no, you aren't. We have an appointment open Thursday at 9 a.m. Yeah. And you're like, okay, great. I'll make it work. Right. If you treat yourself that way, they will treat you that way. People are used to that. Number two, it's just like we're talking about having a group text. Even if I'm in a group text, I never say anything. I had to call my doctor last week and I only talked to the nurse. Nurse said, let me talk to your doctor. Called me back. Hey, this is what he said. Great. All I feel like we're wired. I just want to know that the person that I tried to reach is involved. That's all that it matters. And so like we overvalue ourselves as agents and we think we've got to be involved. I got used to when it was just me and my original assistant, someone would call me and I'd be like, I don't want to answer. I know they're going to ask me a question that my assistant knows. So I would literally respond, thanks so much. Hey, I'm tied up in a meeting right now. Even if I wasn't, I'm going to ask Ariana to call you back, right? Ariana calls and says, hey, everything's good. Great. I knew it would be. Like, there's no reason for me to be involved. I want to train them that they can talk to my assistant because the only reason Casey's here is because she knows 99% of what I know, right? So talk to her. She's good. She'll take care of you. And so I think, like, again, some people, it's easier for them to understand that. Other people, it's more challenging. But you've got to treat yourself with the respect and trust, like Jesse said, trust that your team knows what's going on. And that if Casey doesn't know, she's going to get our help. But other than that, majority of questions can be answered by her, and she's nicer than me and Jesse are anyway. So they're going to enjoy talking to her more than they enjoy talking to us. I think that's true.
So what happens next? And last question, I swear. Well, what happens next? Now you have someone as wonderful and amazingly talented as Jesse, and as amazing and talented as Casey. How do you, your pipeline, your business grows naturally over time, right? So like, what happens next? I don't know if you've thought through this, but when Jesse gets to the point where the joy is no longer there of selling and showing houses anymore, then does Jesse receive leverage for that part of the business? Where does that go?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So no, I'll just get rid of him. No, I'm kidding. So so that's one of the conversations.
Team leader, when you empower your own people, and again, this goes back to team leader scarcity is like massive. They're afraid to let their people fly because then they're afraid their people are going to fly away because they don't know how to continue to let them fly within the organization.
And some of them will, right? Some of them will. And that's okay. Like Jesse knows that as soon as we're not providing enough value, he should go do it on his own. Like that's totally okay. I have no problem with that. Right. Yeah. Because he has like a really high buyer that's in the pipeline. And he's like, as soon as that buyer's ready, I'm going on my own. I'm like, dag on it. No, but the reality is like, it's okay. I have an abundant mindset. I want them to succeed. You don't have to be the king. You can be the king maker. That's good too, right? Like that's totally okay. And I think that the reality for me is, so Jesse knows like one of the big steps next is I'll probably bring on one more agent, and that'll give us the financial means that I think makes sense to just hire a full-time showing assistant, right? So there's good value for him too. We're having that conversation, whatever that looks like. Now, not everyone's going to have the opportunities that he will on the team, right? Because he's the first one that's done it at a super high level. But it's got to make sense. Like at the end of the day, it's got to be fair. We just had a conversation about, hey, Jesse, here's a role that you could go into. He and his wife taught you're going to sell less, but I think you'll make roughly the same, probably a little bit less, but like significantly less time. I don't want that. I appreciate that. But like right now, I just want to keep selling. So you always got to be thinking about your people. And I do think for me, at least, Lindsay, like my heart is, well, I'm not just not doing anything. I'm working on another training and coaching company. If that grows and takes off, I love the idea of now the majority of the profit from the real estate team just goes back to the team. Like that's a great thing. I'm out there working on a mortgage JV. I'm trying to add value, right? We'd love to start a particular business and let the team be owners of that, right? So just giving them opportunities that they wouldn't have unless they're connected to me, I think is a huge value as well. But at the end of the day, I want them to do what's best for them. Even if that's not with me, let me try to figure that out. But if it's still not, go do your own thing. Like,
and Casey, I imagine Casey could grow depending on what happens, right, into a role where she's managing other operational people or other transaction coordinators, or right. Like, I guess what I wanted people to hear is, a leader builds things so that their people can grow and outgrow them. I loved what you said about you don't have to be the king, you can be the kingmaker, right? Like, it's just the scarcity that I see in teams out there just blows my mind. Like,
so Lindsay,
it's crazy.
I'll add, I mean, I think it does, again, goes back to the right people. I have some significant amount of humility in where I was. I'm making more per quarter than I was making 3 years ago. Like I owe a lot to this team, and I'm very loyal to this team, and I know Casey is as well. I have no intention of leaving. But there was also recently Garrett and I were at a mastermind, and someone said something to me there, Clay Aquino, that he's a big agent down in Chesapeake. He said something that really kind of helped shape and change my mindset, right? Because everybody talks about team leaders leveraging out, right? And I'm the leverage. But Casey and Garrett are my leverage, right? I am running my business. My business is Jesse Hutchinson Real Estate Converting and Closing business, right? I have outsourced all the systems, all the payroll, all of the coaching, all the marketing, half the lead generation. Like all of that is outsourced with these two. And so I am running my business, and I'm doing what I want to do in it. I don't want that headache. I never want that headache. And so I think it's about mindset of like, what do you want to do? And are you running your business? I wake up every day and get to do what I love to do. And when I get to do it in a fraction of the amount of time that most agents do, and I get to spend the rest of my time with my family or on my boat.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's what I've has triggered in my brain since we've been talking is that a team is a place from the top down and bottom up for abundance-minded individuals. And if you have a leader or team members who are in scarcity, it will just never work, because it's such an interesting ecosystem. You're 100% correct. Like, you are all each other's leverage. I mean, I know agents who would kill to have the business that you have. They would never be able to run that on their own, and never want to run that on their own, right? And so I think it goes back to what both of you said, all three of you said, really, which is great. You have to have the right people. And if you don't have the right people, then you've got to move on, because it will never work otherwise. But you guys you're doing an incredible job. You're very, very unique. I hope everybody goes back and listens to Garrett's talks about how they run that business referral only. It's mind blowing to me, because that's the number one place. Like, people go out there, they invest hundreds of that. I mean, I know agents literally who are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on lead generation for their team. And then they're in constant panic, and they're in constant frustration, and they're in constant, quietly, they don't say it to their team, obviously, but like friction with their team, because if the team isn't performing on those leads, they're like, this is like coming out of my bank account, and I'm going to go broke, and you guys aren't doing anything with it, So the fact that you can scale a team based on referral only, I think I've said this to you before, it doesn't seem like anyone knows that. So it's like no one's figured it out. So go and listen to Garrett talk about being run referral only. But I got a ton out of this, you guys, today. I really appreciate your candor. And I'm just so thankful that you guys were here with us, because I think everyone will learn a lot about being on a team, starting a team, all the different things.
Thanks for having us, Lindsay. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Good to see you again, Lindsay.
Yeah, it's so good to see you. We need to be on a boat together at some point. We gotta figure that out.
Yeah, I saw you got one. We'll have to catch up on the
I
water.
had one
sometime.
for a while. I just got a new one. But Jesse and I are like the boat king and queen over here. I'm on the same wavelength as him. I'm like, I don't really care what happens. Just get me on my boat a couple of days a week, and I'll be good.
That's great.
No ego, just boating. So yeah,
That's good.
Nice.
Well, we appreciate you guys. I'm sure we'll see you guys soon. Have a great rest of the week. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Angela and Lindsay would love to receive your real estate referrals in Colorado. Connect with the Homegirls on social media at The Real Homegirls Podcast.